Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and this amazing model is the Lost City. It is part of the LEGO Bricklink Designer Program, which is a program where AFOLs can design their own models and have them be turned into official LEGO sets. Kind of similar to LEGO Ideas, except it's a little bit easier to get designs through. They aren't really redesigned by official LEGO designers. Basically, the AFOLs have to work with the instructions team and the design team to try to make their original model as close to an official set as possible, and then you buy them on lego.com through a crowdfunding process, which typically sells out within seconds or minutes. This to me is a really cool model because it's kind of like a pseudo LEGO Adventures set. It really gives me the same vibe that a lot of the Amazon Ancient Ruins and original LEGO Adventures Jungle sets gave me, where you have a crew of modern day explorers looking into this ancient city that's all broken down, that's succumbing into nature, and it is a really phenomenal build. So join me right now as we take a look at the Lost City, and of course, you can find all of the new LEGO Bricklink Designer Program sets available right now, actually, on the website, which is pretty timely for this review. So let's jump in right now. So this is the Bricklink Designer Program set, The Lost City. It retailed for $290 US, 270 euros, or 240 British pounds when it released earlier this year, and comes with 3,506 pieces, which on paper is actually really good value. Although I will say many of those pieces do make up very small details throughout the model. Altogether though, it is a remarkably detailed building. There are lots of layers, rooms to explore, and a ton of detail packed into every single nook and cranny. Really, the only downside is there are basically no play features. This is just a little bit of a step above a purely display model because there are a couple of things you can do and pose the minifigures around, but it clearly is meant to just look good on display as opposed to actually be something you play with and have minifigures fully explore. That being said, the aesthetics of the model are absolutely unparalleled. I love how this almost feels like a lost LEGO Adventurers set, something that we could see in the modern day should adventurers make a return and not just be Johnny Thunder randomly popping up in city sets here and there. I just love how the entire city feels extremely overgrown. There are vines creeping all around the rockwork. There's little bits of teal and moss green scattered throughout the model, which really makes it look like there's a layer of vegetation all around the ancient stone. And one of my favorite details is it really clearly showcases what the city once looked like before it has been ravaged by time. There are different bits and pieces, even by just looking at these statues on the very front, which hint at what this model could have looked like in its prime, so to speak, which means that if you wanted to build your own mock version, you probably could put together a version of this that was pre-overgrowth and vegetation and actually show what this might have looked like back in ancient times, which is super cool. I think the architecture of this build is quite unlike anything that we've really seen from LEGO so far as well in really any official set. It has some South American influence to it, but it isn't really necessarily showcasing one particular culture or style, but instead trying to be an amalgamation of all sorts of different types of things that you would see in an ancient overgrown city. Again, one of my favorite details are these statues on the front here. You can see that one of them is holding a shield and a spear and has its head still on, and the other one, the head has fallen off onto the ground. It is actually fixed on the ground. Part of the shield has crumbled and broken to pieces, and you can see it mounted on a hinge there. There are some vines creeping through where that hinge was supposed to be for the shield, and it is intentionally meant to look partially destroyed. I feel like that's an aesthetic that is pretty difficult to pull off in LEGO without it basically looking like your model was partially damaged, but it's very intentional in the way it's done. Even the way this leg on the statue is done was absolutely mind-blowing to me. How you can see there's a crack in one of the legs, so there's a slight difference in how the two statues are set up. Making your way up to the stairs here, you can see that the bottom is supposed to be fully flooded, so maybe the bottom was accessible at some point, but now that is supposed to be water filling up an underwater pool, which is just a really nice touch showcasing that how water has kind of permeated the rest of the building. The roofing technique is fantastic on the sides and front of the city, and I love just the inclusion of this little brown vine just creeping through the root of the tree there, which is just a really nice touch. You can remove some of the boulders on the side here, which showcases access to the underground section, and that's the one thing that I feel like is a little bit strange about the model. The bottom section is clearly meant to be underground, but then of course you have these exposed sections here where the water would probably be flowing out of it, but again, you suspend your disbelief a little bit, pretend that you're actually going underneath the model for the underwater section, and it totally works just fine. Making our way to this side of the model, I really appreciate how you can kind of see these little bits and pieces of what once used to be these kind of rounded dome elements sticking out of the sides of the model. Putting this together was a little dubious, I will say. It is not supported at all from the bottom, and that's the thing about these Bricklink Designer Program sets. 9 times out of 10, they're gonna be totally fine, and they've gotten better as time has gone on, but they definitely are using building techniques that you wouldn't necessarily see in an official LEGO set made for general consumer purchases, because these aren't really designed by the same exact LEGO designers, they're designed by fans. So there is some level of mock-ish feeling to this, which is actually something I do appreciate about them, making them feel fresh for an official quote-unquote LEGO set. The underwater part is really cool, but kind of inaccessible. I can barely stick my fingers underneath, and there is a really nice detail of a coffin that kind of slides open, or maybe this is some sort of a treasure holding area, but unfortunately there is no real way to get your minifigures or your fingers into the model there. And that is one of the downsides of this model. Again, you build a lot of things, and then you kind of tuck them away, and there's no real easy way to access them. It's not like this is built like a standard LEGO set where maybe you could remove some layers and access the interior. What you see is what you get in terms of what you can do to play around with the model. All around in the underground section, there are little bits of Easter eggs like skeletons broken apart and the bones of skeletons hidden across. There's part of a shattered dome resting on its side, completely overgrown, and there's a throne on the bottom level. A really cool other feature here is that you can see that there are actual water droplets dripping through these holes here down into the center area, which might suggest as to how exactly that part got flooded. And that's another really nice build detail I like about the set. You can really see just little bits and droplets of water that just tell a story through the way they're built. Unfortunately though, what you see of that interior is it. There is no other interior, there aren't really any hidden surprises, and for a set like this, I feel like one of my favorite things to do with a lot of the older LEGO Adventure sets was to really feel like my minifigures were exploring something, and that they were uncovering things hidden. There were lots of traps they were springing, or they were trying to uncover different treasure, and here it kind of feels like they just walk into a room that looks really cool with a throne in it, but there's really not much else for them to see and do. Even the other levels of the building are pretty much just taken up by that water dropping through, which is a nice touch, but again, it really does feel like this is meant primarily for display rather than play. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just something I did want to point out because this isn't like your traditional LEGO set, where it feels like there are fun functions to explore. I feel like some other Bricklink Designer Program models that have been coming out more recently do a slightly better job at that part of the thing in terms of making it feel playable and displayable at the same time, and I definitely am not knocking this one. I really do like it for what it is, but if I had to name a con, it's that. The two minifigures are honestly pretty uninteresting, but that is par for the course for all of the Bricklink Designer Program models aside from the castle ones, which already have cool castle minifigs to draw from. Again, they're just using just whatever regular pieces LEGO made available for this program, so you kind of just have to cobble together either city minifigures or castle minifigures, and well, these city minifigures did the trick. I do like how they kind of sort of resemble adventurers-like archetypes. Like, you've got someone in a fedora hat with a backpack that kind of calls back to the adventurers lineup, and you have a female adventurer there as well with kind of that dark green coat, so that's super cool, but otherwise the minifigures are not super special. Altogether, the build itself looks good, but again, there are parts that are very flimsy. The trees themselves, as you saw there, do tend to fall off. They're only attached by a couple of studs, but there are other parts that are really, really solid. So you do just have to be a bit careful with it. Again, as you can see, I just kind of knocked over that tree just by brushing against it, but you have to admit the final result does look absolutely phenomenal as a LEGO build. This is the kind of model I feel is perfect for the Bricklink Designer Program, something unlike anything LEGO would ever release today in a standard mainline official set, but something that could absolutely accompany existing LEGO themes and existing LEGO stories. That's all for my look at The Lost City. Let me know in the comments, what do you think of the set? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Did you manage to get one when it was available for pre-order on lego.com? Or are you gonna have to pay the Bricklink prices right now, which is actually pretty close to how much it sold for originally? I'm looking at the price guide and it looks like you can pick one up for around $350 US today, fully sealed, which isn't that much more expensive than the $290 that it initially sold for. So honestly, if you like what you see, I definitely would recommend trying this out. The build process was super cool, and I'll be reviewing a lot more Bricklink Designer Program sets in the future. So thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon, and bye for now.